There's not as many HVAC contractors out there that you would think that are up to date when it comes to the International Residential Code, particularly building codes. Why do so many omit sizing limitations and just consider it a nuisance? I don't know, but I'm going to tell you a story why we need them and why you should follow them. Hi, I'm Chris Morton with HVAC Pro Blog, and I want to say there's nothing more frustrating to me than seeing a HVAC load calculation, or manual J, completed after the system is already sold, installed, started up, and then somebody asks for one, so you complete one. That process doesn't work, and it renders the entire system design useless. So why do people not abide by sizing limits? I have to tell you, just because you've been installing systems for decades doesn't mean it was sized correctly and it's running efficiently. What happens when the process is ignored? Let's find out before we had codes. So the story goes like this. There once was a very successful homeowner. He made a little bit of money and he wanted to update his HVAC system. So he gets a quote. Very close, reputable company comes out and he finds it's just way more than he expected. So he calls a friend. The friend works for a distributor. The guy says, sure, I can install that thing under the moonlight. And he starts gathering information. He knows a good sales guy will do that. So when he gets out there, the homeowner says, geez, you know, the system I have just never shuts off. It's never comfortable. I use a ton of electricity. I just want this thing to shut off. So he goes ahead and installs the largest furnace that they distribute locally. For most of you that know, that's probably 100 or 120,000 BTU gas furnace. Way too big for this home. Also, since there's ductwork, why not put an air conditioner in, right? Now, this was before the days of 410A and brazed connections. Back with R22, you used to see a lot of soldered connections. Really important in this story. So, lucky for, let's call him Joe. Lucky for Joe, he installed this system in the spring. Unfortunately, just 1 month in, the compressor failed. Who would have seen that coming, right? So he replaces the compressor under warranty, makes zero for his moonlight business, and a month later, the compressor fails again. Joe's starting to think, what kind of crap equipment are we selling these guys, right? I have to replace 2 compressors? These manufacturers must be off their rocker. So he went and replaced the compressor again, got the system running throughout the rest until the fall, all right? Once the fall hits, that's when things got really interesting. System was shutting off on limit. Now, most of you technicians out there know most likely what the problem is here. System's way too big for the ductwork that's there. If you would have sized the system correctly, it probably would have been smaller than what the homeowner needed, or wanted, I should say. So, system keeps locking out on limit. Joe doesn't have time for this. He's working a full-time job during the week, and he keeps getting these phone calls at night. So he goes out there, starts measuring temperatures, and thinks, what on earth were the engineers thinking? The heat exchanger's got to be 220, 240 degrees. And the limit shuts off at like 160, 180. Doesn't make any sense. I know what I can do. I can go get one of those bimetal types that we sell. You know, the little round ones. Replace the limit switch. That'll keep the furnace running. And, you know, as Joe, I'll stop getting phone calls from the homeowner. This means he can finally get some sleep this weekend. Jeez, it's been a long road. I'm going to tell you, that's the famous last words for Joe's blossoming moonlight business. This is where the story takes a turn for the worse. That night, heat exchanger gets too hot, and instead of shutting off because that bimetal switch was in there, it started melting the condensate pan on the AC evaporator. Once that started happening, it caught fire. There was a crack in that heat exchanger. And one of those soldered connections in that coil for the R22 unit actually started leaking. You start introducing a flame to R22, everybody knows we get phosphine gas. So homeowner, fortunately, in the middle of the night, smelled something a little odd. Woke his wife up, his 2 and his 4-year-old daughter, got everybody out of the house before the house started to catch fire. Fortunately, you know, over the next couple of weeks, their lungs cleared up, wasn't an issue. Home, on the other hand, needed a lot of repairs. And fortunately, Joe did have a little bit of insurance in order to cover these repairs, but it's not looking good for Joe's business going forward. I think he's just going to go back to his day job. Story's pretty true in most regards. I may have blemished a little bit on Joe's diagnosing skills. There is a moral of the story here. Properly size your equipment for the home. Don't think you're doing anyone a solid by installing the next size up or sizes up. If you're not familiar with local building codes, let's just say your livelihood, and because of the house, the homeowner's livelihood is on the line. If you have a story like this that you need to share but you can't find the words, I would love to help our industry and share it and stop the next guy from doing this. Please snap some pictures, send them over to me. I'm more than happy to give you some credit. I just want to make sure we share these problems and stop the ridiculousness. I have to say, safety is paramount, and I appreciate you subscribing to HVAC Pro Blog, where we provide advice for residential system design, system diagnosis, and quality installation. Until next time, Chris Morin with HVAC Pro Blog. Have a great weekend.